Hey everyone, and welcome to the Always On Point podcast here with Kristen Ambo, sponsored by my parent company, Point Mortgage. So happy to be here with you guys for another week. For all of you out there who have liked, subscribed, thank you so much. You're keeping the channel going and we appreciate it. Getting all this information out it's just a really cool thing. So today I want to discuss ways to save money. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because one of the number one things I hear from clients all the time is I can afford to buy, but I don't have the money for a down payment, or I don't have the money for closing costs, or, just the money that it takes to get into a home. And I understand prices are high, inflation is high, incomes aren't necessarily meeting the inflation point anymore. And so what are some ways that we can do that? And I'm, here to tell you that for 1 year, $27 a day would save you $10,000. That's enough money to get into a home. So why are we breaking that down? Well, when you break it down like that, it's like, well, $27 a day. How am I supposed to save that, right? Gosh, I just got myself a cup of coffee at Starbucks. That was $9. $9 for a cup of coffee. And I know, to all the kids out there, when I say kids, I saying, in the early 20s who are, constantly buying coffee and going out, that this sounds, of course, that's what my mom says all the time too. But think about it. 2 to 3 cups of coffee a day in 1 year, you could be a homeowner. It's crazy to think that way, right? So I thought, what is something super simple that is something that the world can understand of how quote unquote easy it could be to get into a home. And it might not sound easy, but really it could be. Every year I do a post on my social media about how it's time as a reminder to check your subscriptions that you don't even realize you have. I do that every year myself because we sign up for stuff. We don't realize we're signing up for it. So $10 to, this streaming service, $19 of this streaming service, $25, $30 of that streaming service. What if for 1 year we didn't look at any of those streaming services and we just saved the money and maybe just used our online accounts, YouTube, to learn things without having to spend a ton of money to do it, and then we own a house? That's how easy it can be, is replacing some of these things that we frivolously spend money on. And the other point I want to really bring around to that is interest rates. There's no doubt that we would all love interest rates to come down. They haven't come down yet. As of today, the national average is about 6.6% on a 30-year fixed purchase without points. National average. And I was able to talk to the team of people that do this national average on mortgagenewsdaily.com. If you're not a part of that, you can look at that yourself, but that's a national average. They go to 30, 40 different lenders a week from all over the country. So they have all the things they do, and then they average out the interest rates that they're offering that day. So it's a really fair and accurate depiction between banks, credit unions, and mortgage banks on what the rate really is. And today's 6.6 is exactly where rates are at on my rate sheet. Can I get all the way down to 4.875? Sure, if I want to spend a ton of money to buy that rate. Can I go all the way up to 7.75? Yeah, if I want a big credit from the lender to pay for some of my costs, which is an option. Notice how I put that in there. Finding closing costs, money for closing costs can be difficult. But did you know, just like loan officers are out selling lower rates for money, you could also take a higher rate and get a credit back to help you with that. That is a possibility. It is a strategy that you could use. Seller credits, huge strategy people are using right now. Even when they're offering full price, maybe they're going over by a little bit and then asking for a seller credit back. Maybe instead of offering $200,000, you offer $205,000 and get a $5,000 seller credit. The seller is netting the same. They are willing to talk about that. So that is another option. The other option is saving. And today I really wanted to focus on the savings, the way you can save for this and easier ways to do it. Going back to the savings piece of this, one way that's so easy to save is by only using your credit card for things that you would have to buy. Gas, groceries. Pay it off every month. Don't use your credit card for anything else. When you're using your credit card, let's say you are using your credit card to buy Starbucks, you do realize that you're probably on average paying 25% interest on that $9 cup of coffee or $8 cup of coffee, depending on how fancy you get or not. That's a crazy amount of money. So while I say the world, but consumers are sitting back, and especially the 20-somethings going, how am I ever going to buy my first house? I can never afford it, are also using credit cards more than they ever have. So they're okay buying something they don't need at a 25% interest rate and then justifying how they can't afford a house at 6.5%. When I say that out loud, see how funny that sounds? So you're going to put a pair of shoes you don't need on a credit card for 25% and then complain how you can't buy a house at 6.5%. You guys, rates are really not that high. It's only, we can use it to victimize ourselves, or we can say, this is what the world is doing. This is where our market's at. I don't want to rent anymore. I want to be a homeowner. What are ways I can do it? And then for 1 year, probably even less if you put your heart really into it, you could be a homeowner. 1 year is not that long. It goes by so fast. And in 1 year, you might buy now at 6.5, and in 1 year rates might be back down to 5.99. But if you're not doing the things you need to do to prepare right now to get that lower interest rate in a year, you're going to be in the same boat next year. Well, 5.99 is going to be too high. And then 5.5 is going to be too high. And then I can't afford something because 5% is too high. It's a never-ending cycle. We have to face the things we're doing now, and we have to look in the mirror and just say, hey, I'm going to change my life. It's not up to the government to do it. It's not up to the housing market to do it. It's up to me. And what are some ways that I can do this? And it all comes down time and time again to spending. Spending. Do you know the average vehicle loan right now? The monthly payment is almost $800 a month. People are buying cars at $800 a month and 8 to 9% interest rate, and then not buying a vehicle. Did you also know that if you spend $800 on a car payment, that could equate to about $300,000 in mortgage? Seriously. So all the people who are out there were like, I can't afford a $300,000 house right now, and that's what, that's where the market's at, and poor me is also probably out there spending $800 a month on a car payment. This is the reality of what's out there. And I'm bringing it to you because maybe you're one of those people who are like, I'll never be a homeowner. Look at yourself in the mirror. And if you look at yourself and say, I'm doing everything I can, and you're living by that, you will be a homeowner. Just keep saving. Some people can only save $10 a month right now. I get that. Some can save $1,000 a month. I get that. And some people are lucky enough to have their family help them out with everything. But that doesn't mean that you can't be a homeowner, that you can't change the cycle, that you can't do those types of things. I just closed on a home last month for a couple who are the first couple. They're in their early 30s with kids. They're the first people in both sides of their family to be a homeowner. They thought they were destined to rent for the rest of their life because that's all they knew. It's all their family knew, so it's what they knew. They're homeowners. And the reason why I bring all this to you is because there is also something to be said about a homeowner having 40% more wealth than a non-homeowner. Not because they own it, not because they can say I'm the owner, but because every time they're making a payment, they are building their own equity. Their wealth is in their equity. And then they allow that equity to work for them, whether it be to add on to the house to build more equity. Or maybe they take some equity out and they buy another house, a rental house with it. Maybe they take some of the equity out and they invest it in a really promising investment account that's paying really well on the dividends. Those types of things are options for you then. And I have some people who don't want a mortgage at all and don't want to use the equity. They just want to sit on it. That's okay too. But they're sitting on that equity, $200, $300, $400, $500 million of equity that still is net worth to them. That's still a value add to them, even if they're choosing not to use it. And when you're renting, you are paying somebody else to build their wealth. As a landlord, I understand that. And this is not to shame people. My daughter is a renter. Right now, it's best for her. We've sat down, we've worked it out. But does that mean forever? No, it doesn't mean forever. Maybe you have to rent right now, and that's okay. Don't be hard on yourself about it. But if home ownership is one of those things that's truly a dream for you, and it is the American dream, you can make that happen. We can make that happen for you. And that starts with a strategy call. Not every call I take turns into a pre-approval tomorrow that turns into an accepted offer the next day. Some of the calls I make and some of the most fun calls I have are the strategy calls. Strategizing with a client on what they need to do in order to prepare themselves to buy in 6 months, a year, 2 years. A lot of self-employed calls right now with how we're strategizing with them so that they're working with their tax accountants to make sure that they're showing income on paper so that they can buy a house later on. How do we go about making sure that you're not overspending in one way to make sure you can save in another? If you don't know where to start with that, start with a call with us. Start with a call with me. We'll start that strategy with you. So many people, and listen, it is not the consumer's fault listening to this right now, especially if you're somewhere between the ages of probably 18 and 35. And the reason why I say that is because they were no longer teaching financial literacy in school. And so if you're in your early to mid 30s and you grew up in a household where your parents didn't teach you financial literacy and the school didn't teach you financial literacy, you probably have no idea. And I will say that's not your fault, because how do you even know what questions to ask at that point? Do not feel any kind of way. Call me. That's where I want to help you. That's part of the education background in me and wanting to make sure you know. And there's no question too stupid when it comes to this. You want to build wealth, you don't know where to start, call me. There's no fee to do it. There's no ill will. There's no judgment. There's no anything, right? I have put people into homes, first-time home buyers in their 60s. No judgment. Never going to be, never will be. Some people think, and when I say people, I'm going to even go on parents these days. Parents think that the best thing to do is just do everything for their kids, pay their bills, pay the rent that they have, pay for their cars, buy new cars. We're not teaching these younger adults how to actually be independent on their own and pay for their own things and truly understand what it's going to be like to be the homeowner. There are far more young adults that I talk to that need their parents on the phone because their parents are going to make the decisions for them. And you guys, you're not helping your children when you're doing that. You're enabling them to never know and to constantly be on you instead of empowering them to learn on their own, pay their own bills, understand why, really appreciate the value of $1. So all of a sudden now $9 coffees hurt the pocketbook a little bit because there's nobody refilling that checking account every month unless they are working hard for it. And if they're making $15 an hour and paying $9 for a coffee, it might sit a little bit differently. And I also want to say there's no too little of income for you to afford a home. If you are making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, you too can afford a home. It's just a matter of somebody sitting down with you and educating you on what you need to do to make those payments. You can do that. And, every choice has a consequence. And every time we go by and we pay $9 for that coffee, we're choosing not to save it somewhere else. If you can afford it, by all means, buy all the $9 coffees you want. Buy around for the whole place. But if you can't and you really want to go further in life financially, maybe you just do one coffee a week. Then it turns into one every other week. And then it turns into once a month. And then all of a sudden you realize, if I just bought the Nespresso at $2 a day, I'm going to save a ton of money. I know that sounds crazy, but it's real, right? And I just, when I started really listening and I hang around with a lot of young adults, whether it be clients that we're talking to, whether it be my daughter's friends, whether it be at, those of you who know me know that I hang out at the racetrack all summer because my husband races. There's a lot of young adults who are racing right now, who are talk to me and try to come to me with questions and ideas of what they can do and how they can make it work. And we come to the same conclusion. What can you cut out of your life to help you save that $27 a day? And usually it's stopping at the gas station for food, coffee, Amazon. I'm just as guilty as Amazon. But I didn't have to spend that $27 a day on Amazon, and I could have $10,000 in my pocket by the end of the year. 1 year. Challenge yourself to do it and make it fun. Maybe if you do 1 month, $27 a day, see how much you have. The more you gain, the easier it is to say, okay, now I'm really going to start saving. And now I'm really going to start saving. When we stay in a hole, it's really hard to come out of the hole because we've figured out how to live life in that hole. But when you come out of it, and I'm speaking from experience, I'm speaking to you, looking at you, talking to you as somebody who worked commission her whole life. My 20s, I was feast or famine. I was up and down, living high in the hole, living high in the hole. Once you get yourself out of the hole, you realize there's a whole new aspect of life, and living on $20, $27 a day is so easy to let go of and put in the right direction. And the more you gain confidence in what you're doing financially, the more you gain confidence in every aspect of your life, personally and professionally. And when you are financially independent of anyone, and believe me, if Sophia's listening right now, she knows I have the same conversation with her. When you are financially independent of anyone, your parents, your grandparents, your aunt and uncle, your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever the case may be, when you have that financial independence as a single person or as a couple, you are so empowered to keep building and building and building. And that's where wealth steps in. But it does take that first step. So I invite you to just look at sit down and really write everything out. When you become face to face with that, and be honest with yourself. How much are you spending on gas? How much are you spending on gas station food? How much are you spending on XYZ? How much do you really need that brand new cell phone every single year for $1,000? Or could you make your phone last 3 years? And now you have $2 extra $1,000 saved. These are the things that matter. Write everything down and really look in the eye and say, this is how I get to the next level. This is how I get to the new house. This is how I get out of the house I'm in and buy the next house because I'm running out of room in mine. This is how I get from my apartment to my own condo or to my own house or to a duplex, whatever that looks like. Let's sit down, let's talk about that, and let's really set a goal for you. And I will help cheer you along every step of the way because sometimes people don't cheer you on and you need that. And I'm happy to be the person to do it. So this isn't necessarily about mortgages. Yes, if you want to buy a house I'm in, I'll help. This is more so about finding your financial independence. Your no string tied to anyone else. No one can tell you what to do then because it's your own money, it's your own peace, it's your own findings. And that is something I did and I learned a long time ago on my own. Would it have been easier to take money from my grandparents? Of course. Did I? No. I did it the hard way, and I can sit here and look at you all today and say, my husband and I did it the hard way with no help from anyone. We earned every dollar by hard work and holding back, having garage beers instead of going out with friends on weekends. Well, it was tough, and we wanted to be a part of the party. Right now, a lot of what we have is because we just stayed home and had garage beers instead of being at a bar paying $10 for a beer or a coffee. Which way do you want to look at it? Those are things that matter. Limit yourself because bigger things will come. So just some nuggets for you today, because when I started seeing credit card interest and I started seeing the height of car payments and listening more and more about how cars and credit cards and overspending on silly things like subscriptions and or coffees are really what's bringing the youth down from homeownership and not actually homeownership itself, I felt like it was time to share that. I don't want to see the national first-time homebuyer age be 35 to 40 either. I'd love for it to be 20 to 25. Start young. Do what you can. Thank you as always for listening. If you have any questions or you have any comments on that, love to hear them. Drop them below. Shoot us a text. We're here to help any way we can. kambos@pointmtg.com is my personal email. Throw an email in there with your question. I'm happy to get it answered as soon as possible. And as always, we'll see you next week here on the Always On Point podcast.